And go ahead and do the welcome.
Okay. Hi, everyone. I'm Sarah Harris. I'm with the Florida Agritourism Association. We appreciate you joining us this afternoon. We've got a great program scheduled. Just wanted to go through some housekeeping as always. Um, Today we're with Mike Holtzman, Holtzman Group. A lot of you probably have seen him at our conferences before. He is just, as it says, hospitality expert. If you have any trouble with your audio, here are some tips to help you. If everyone can stay muted, which it looks like we are, that'll help so we can hear Mike. And again, just I'll monitor the chat box. So if you have any questions, drop them in there. And of course, join us at the 2026 annual conference in Punta Gorda. I always want to say Punta Cana. Registration is open, and we are really close to launching our agenda. So keep an eye on that.
Okay, so thank you very much, Sarah. And it is our pleasure as the Florida Agritourism Association to introduce Mike Holtzman. Many of you remember that he was our first keynote speaker at our very first conference. So now we're on number four. Come back again and see how we've evolved, all the great things that we are accomplishing, that our members are accomplishing, and how we can help you with our education opportunities, advocacy, and just networking. So, Mike, you might want to update everyone. You are constantly evolving. We really appreciate the advice and expertise you offer about food and beverage and how our members can really maximize that opportunity on their farms and ranches. So, maybe you could tell us about your latest endeavors before you launch into your topic.
Yeah, thanks for the introduction, you guys. I love working with this group and seeing it evolve as Florida grows into a much larger state for this agritourism piece. So my name is Michael Holtzman. If you haven't seen or heard me before, like I said, I've been with this group for 4 years since they started, and with Maize and Corn Party along with NAFMA for about 8 years now. But I've been in that industry for 47 years. I was calculating it this morning slowly. As you get older, calculations take a little longer. But and 34 years as a consultant. So I finally have the gray hair that makes me a consultant. But it's taken a few years to grow. But we're closing in on more than 50 farms now, and we've done projects with three over 1,000+ projects in 49 states, and now we're hitting our fifth continent next month. And but really, that's our thing about it is not just knowing about the details of food and beverage, but really understanding the whole concept of a farm in its whole entity of design and what to put in and what attractions and what do we charge. And so we're a little bit dangerous on some other ends and kind of bringing this in just because we've got to see so many farms and talk to them about their success stories. If you meet with 50 of them and you ask them what are the top three things you do and you keep track of that, get some pretty good ideas about what can make a successful farm. So hopefully out of this conference or this presentation, you'll be able to take some ideas back and think about the next stages of where do we go from here as we open our farms up, and what specifically in the food and beverage end, what you want to kind of look at from that perspective. So is the screen mine? Like, can you see this? Or do I have to take the screen, you guys?
Sarah, I think you just need to hit share, Mike.
Okay, there it goes.
Sorry, I got booted off. Strange. You figured it out. Sorry about that.
Is it okay? It's working now?
Yes, we can see it.
Okay. Oops. That didn't work too well. Hold on. My screen is a little awkward. Nope.
You might have to do share full screen.
Can you see that?
Not yet.
Okay. So let's go from here. Again, we'll do the share button.
Yep, and then find it on your computer.
If you're like me and have multiple screens, you just need to make sure you're sharing the right one.
Yes, we can see it. Oh, I like that. It moves.
Good. All right. So just talking a little bit about the background and the different things that we've done already, just saying that not only have we done a lot of projects as well, but spoken at a lot of different conferences over the years and water parks and golf courses and ski resorts and just entities that we kind of call captive market. So when you have people in your facility, they're kind of inside your walls. It's a captive market location and it's treated a little bit different specifically for the restaurant end. And the hardest part, though, about what we do as we're working through this is that fortunately or unfortunately, you're not going to be feeding hundreds of people as you get rolling here. You're going to be feeding thousands of people. And so that's kind of the trick to this about how do we handle the big numbers because we can't just do corn dogs in a, frying six of them every 5 minutes. It's just not going to work. So it's keeping up with all the times and what we're doing. And those are the things that we're going to talk about today, just kind of from widespread ideas all the way down to the details of it. So just a list of some of the farms that we've had the opportunity to be with and work with over the years. And the funny story to me that I always say is Vallows was our first client. I got a call from Tim about 8 years ago, saying, "Oh, I have this agritourism pumpkin farm and we need a little bit of help." And I'm like, I didn't know the industry. And I'm like, what do I even charge for something like that? And coming in and, with these small little pieces, well, you get to Vallows, it's not small. They have 28 food outlets and working through the things that they're doing over 5 million a year in food and beverage in 6 weeks. So many restaurants don't do 5 million in a year. So knowing that they do it in such a short period of time, but it really kind of opened us up to seeing what's out there. And Tim even looks back and says, "Gosh, there's some things I wish I would have done differently." And there's some things that they've done very, very well, and you just adjust with what you have. So, but being able to get to work with that one, kind of the first one out of the gate, was real special. And it's all about kind of creating what in this world, especially right now, where can we get experiences like this in any other place but an agritourism type farm? I heard a statistic that 83% of second graders think that tomatoes come from the store. And so just hearing things like that, where we're like, we get to expose our children and our families and have these great times together. And what happens is that we go to the farm, we go, "Oh, this is great." And then they look at mom and dad in about 45 minutes and they say, "I'm hungry. What do we want to do? What do we want to eat?" And so as we've built these, they're starting to build these amusements and having them stay for a longer period of time. Food is becoming more of a factor. And in fact, food is becoming sometimes the reason why they go for something different and something that they can experience, outside, outdoors, with their families. And so as we kind of talk about it as an experience, we want to really see and be able to provide, what is that? Remember back when you were in second grade or third grade, and what was the memory of some of the experiences you had as a child that really trigger for you? Was it, and that's why like Disney builds a castle, right? The castle is the most photographed. I don't know how they figured this out, but this is what the internet tells me. The most photographed location in the world is taking a picture at Disneyland Castle. So that's kind of an iconic memory of everybody kind of connecting with Disney to get the number of millions of people that have been to them over the years. So what is it about your facility that you can kind of create as that go-to iconic moment that people remember so that it becomes an annual return to your location as part of your whole family experience? So here's just a couple examples of just like, as I call it, the iconic slide, right? The system we took it out, this was built out of a piece of dirt. So being able to take, just something, parts of your land and kind of shifting things around, you don't necessarily need elevation to do it. And then seeing about out in the world about what people are creating as far as experiences. So pickleball is a very active sport. Here, this facility has 5 indoor, 5 outdoor pickleball courts, but only 5% of their revenue comes from pickleball, and 95% of their revenue comes from food and beverage, and a high level of that is beverage. And so it's creating, just a location of an experience around pickleball, but all that does is bring people out as families. You can see that big green. I learned a lot from this big green area out here where they have all the cornhole and the families gathering and just hanging out and watching the kids run around and just having a great time. And that's what they've developed with this. And this person is an individual developer developing this concept called Chicken and Pickle, where he has 10 to 15 million dollars that he's putting in individually. He now has 28 locations and growing. So just seeing that they're putting that much capital into something and getting the money back so quickly by just taking on a sport, but really integrating into a whole family environment. And why not make it a little crazy, right? It's not just pickleball. Maybe we can make it into something else. And so, kind of, what can we do with nighttime events that we can keep people here longer on a Saturday? Is it fireworks? Is it drone shows? Is it what is it that we can make that's unique to our environment to keep people here longer? We'll get more into the details of that Saturday in a little bit as we go along with this. But I think let's start first with the roots of where you are. I mean, you provide, first of all, as I always say to anyone in farming, the first words I say is thank you. Thank you for everything that you do so that we can have food to eat, so that we can have grains for our animals, or whatever you farm is just so critical to this world, because without you, we'd be all starving. So thank you for all that you do and all the work that you spend, in doing that, because it's not easy. I see, we go to the farms and we see you're up at 5 in the morning and you're working till 10 at night and dealing with what you're dealing with all the time. And but here's the thing about agritourism that really ties into this. To some degree, this is your salvation, and your survival can sometimes come down to things that you can't control. So when you're talking about weather, especially now, hurricanes. I mean, we were assisting in opening a farm in St. Pete, Florida, and they got hit by two hurricanes in 12 days, trying to get this thing open, and what I mean, just things that you can't control. And so this is the sustainability model. This is the piece that allows you to have a bad season, but you're still going to have a fall that you can count on, that can create 7 digits of revenue for you and keep you in, and so that you can survive and continue this great process of what you do, and not so reliant on weather to be, deciding whether you survive or not. That's just not fair. So thank you for all that you do, and really appreciate that. And hopefully we can help you with this next level, of items, because wholesale pricing is just coming down so much. The expectation of what you're able to sell, a box of strawberries or a tub of oranges, and then of course your whole orange crop stuff is just crazy. 90% of the crop I heard is gone now with this disease, and that's not easy with what you're doing and what it takes. So like I said, just things that are out of your control, that we can't look up and say, can it rain today, please? We really need some water, or whatever it is that we need. So I'm really a fan of this agritourism piece, just from that standpoint of, really taking this on, because we walk into a lot of farms and we have the whole family there, and someone will say, well, I'm in charge of food. It's me. I'm the lucky one, or sometimes we get it and no one wants to take it on. Like they're just all afraid. And it's like but it's a critical component of your success. So the first thing I kind of say is, don't be afraid of food and beverage. It's not that crazy. It's not rocket science, but there is definitely some basic math that you have to apply so that you can be successful with it. And then we'll go into, of course, some of the details of what to do and what not to do on that end, as we move forward with this. So, as it says here, farming's not easy. Wholesale pricing is so low. Bad seasons, water, hail, disease, everything like that. It just isn't fair. So, that's why I'm a big fan of advocating this. And sometimes, your farm is just off the beaten path. It's down some windy road, and how do they even know you're there? And thank goodness for Google Maps and things of that nature. So, but if you have the ability to, market your signage, which Valas does on the back end, they do touch a freeway out there. And they have hundreds, 100,000 cars a week that go by and see their sign and their date that they're open. So, but people will find you. That's the thing I always say with this is, don't you, there's some great marketing companies now that work within these industries that I know if you come to the show, there's a number of them there, with the ticket agencies and everything that they work together and help you grow your business. Um, and so it doesn't matter really location where you are, much more about what you put on your site. So, and kind of really laying out and taking a look at your acreage and understanding some of the statistics for this. An acre of parking is 100 cars. 100 cars at about 3 to 3.5 per person means that 3 acres should get you 1,000 people, right? So just knowing that on your site, you want to be thinking about parking and not 1,000 people, but you may have 5 or 6 or 7 or 10,000 people at some point in time. So where are you going to put that 20 to 30 acres of parking as you start to grow and plan, as you're laying this out? So that's consideration number one. One of the things I always say about parking is don't worry about it. People will park and then they will walk because we know at Disney that people will park 2.5 miles away to park your car so that you can get on a bus to go over to Disney. That's a long ways. But if they've got to walk a little bit, or you bring out some trams to get people to the front gate, it's okay. So don't stress too much that you don't have to make parking convenient. If you remember back in the Disney days, I lived in Anaheim when I was a child. And so you used to pull up to the front gate. You would literally park your car and you were 100 yards from walking in the park. That's where California Adventure is now. California Adventure was the original parking lot of Disneyland. So we used to be able to do that. So don't sweat too much about how far people have to walk, but keep it in mind, 1 acre, 1,000, I'm sorry, 3 acres, 1,000 people coming into your facilities. So, as Disney's laid out their locations, you're kind of creating your own little fantasy land, right? And kind of thinking about where should the food be as you're putting this in? Where does the commissary come in? Commissary, as I define it, is you're bringing in all this product, where are we going to store it? The things to be kind of aware of is that as you grow your numbers, and I know many of you are thinking, we've only got a few hundred, or we have 1,000 people on a busy Saturday right now, and we're starting to feel this. You're going to start feeling it grow exponentially. Farms are not growing 3% a year. Farms are growing 10 to 20% sometimes a year. So you'll go from 1,000 on a busy Saturday to 2,000 on a busy Saturday to 4,000 on a busy Saturday. And it will go that quickly because you create such a great experience. They tell their friends and everyone comes out to your facility. But as you're going from 1,000 to 4,000 in 2 years, what are we doing with food as we're planning that out? What are we doing with attractions? The secret about kind of making a successful farm, number one, is that you want to create a stay of about 3 to 4 hours minimum. So we need enough activities to do to keep them out there for that 3 to 4 hours. Because if you get them for 3 to 4 hours, you get a meal period. As many of you have learned in doing U-Picks, right? U-Picks is not a 3 to 4 hour stay. Therefore, it's very difficult to get a protein meal out of them because that wasn't their plan. They're coming to pick strawberries or they're coming to do pictures in your flowers. And those are things that are short term, hour to an hour and a half, creating a very difficult meal period, giving you still an opportunity to sell lemonades, to sell small items like that. But you're not going to get the high revenue ticket that you would from being open for serving a lunch or a dinner to them for that period of time. So wanting to create a stay for that long, as you kind of look at Disney here, you got to go to your different lands and go to your different spaces. Don't be afraid to have people walk a long distance to go shoot apple cannons. They will find the apple cannons, I promise. And they need to be shot off into a forest somewhere, right? Because you can shoot an apple a half a mile with those things. So we need some good land to do that. So, but it's okay to have that a long ways away that people have to walk to, because all that walking time does a couple things. One, they get tired, which means they get thirsty. Number two, they get tired and they want to eat something. So, and then, kind of as you're planning your food out, there's going to be kind of a central location that you're kind of thinking about that we'll get into the details here. But kind of like as you go down Main Street and you break off to the lands, that's kind of where you want to kind of keep the food, is kind of in that central area that everybody can see. So here we are with our parcels. in our Google Maps of our farms, and how do we lay it out, and what should we have, and what do we do? And so we're going to kind of just go through some of the things just to be, aware of in this. Definitely that we have to be thinking about utilities and planning for this, that if you think you need 400 amps, bring in 800 amps. We've heard so many times that people have shorted themselves in power, and it just becomes difficult to go to that next level without having to spend that first 50,000 additional to get more power to the site. So when you're doing your initial plannings, please bring in, it isn't that much more to do 800 versus 400 or 1600 versus 800 amps when you do it the first time. There's not a lot of cost additions for going with more amperage, but they're significant when you have to run a whole line fresh. So planning that kind of in advance of what you want to do with gas and what you want to do with water and what you want to do with power. And then specifically for the kitchens, you have to be thinking about septic and getting a location to integrate septic, or if you're lucky enough to have sewer at your down your street of your farm. But many of us are not in that situation, and we're putting these buildings out, in outskirt areas, and septics are not crazy expensive to build, but they're a requirement to do for food and beverage. So you need that one commissary location that handles the majority of the preparation of the food and the cleaning of the product, i.e., the triple sink and the prep sinks, in one location. Then you can do your outskirt buildings with less health department requirements because you have your commissary as your base camp for cleaning the locations. So, and understanding what captive market is, that as we're on site and at our locations here, that we have them captured for a pretty good period of time. And so we're not competing against 7-Eleven in terms of pricing, and we're not competing with, say, the Oklahoma City Thunder's pricing for beers that I saw a couple of weeks ago. They were $14 for a beer, and that's, we don't need to do that, but we also don't have to give it away for $4 because we're only open for 6 weeks. So kind of figuring out that sweet spot for our pricing is important too. And then, other things about what we can do. Do we get into the event business? Do we want to have one of the locations that we worked with here in the top right corner, they integrated a whole barn experience into making it a wedding venue. And they had a significant amount of groups do that in their off seasons, so it worked out really well that, and even if they had a couple days that there was a Saturday sometimes that they would not allow any weddings in October, but they would allow weddings on any of the September days. So, but this has been again, just adding an entity like this can create a whole nother business model, and you don't even have to necessarily take on the food for those venues. You can sub out the food and I always say if someone's going to be my caterer, then I'm going to get 20% of what they make. So if they're doing a $10,000 wedding, I'm getting 2,000 for having the privilege of doing the wedding in our location, along with the rental fee. And then the easiest thing to take on in these is the bar, right? And because if you take on the bar, it's rum and Coke, right? We're not doing fancy drinks at a wedding. We're doing rum and Coke or Jack and Coke or very simple beverages. Doesn't take talented bartenders to do this, is what I'm getting at. So the bar is a good piece to take in these situations of having control if you don't want to bring in the food itself. Please build the bride's room. You need a bride's room. That's a big selling point, and having a place to do the ceremony as well, so that you're a one-stop shop. So keeping those two things in mind if you're going to get into the event side. Alcohol is always a big question in these situations. We have, of course, in relative terms, as a farming community, there is a little reluctance in selling mass quantities of alcohol, just being in the concern of how people will behave. Is that going to interfere with my farm? Is it going to make things difficult for me to be able to service these individuals? The good news that I have for you on that, and reporting back after the years, is all the locations that I've shown you here all offer alcohol and have had zero incidents with alcohol. They have more problems with people tailgating in the parking lot and then coming into the farm because there's no alcohol available. And part of what we do with that, what we recommend is that we charge, this is where we do charge a little bit more for our product. So if you want a nice beer, we don't give them a 12 ounce, we give them a 16 ounce, right? And then we're going to probably charge 10.95. Or if we're doing ciders, we're going to do ciders for the same price. And so it's cider. I'm a big fan of doing ciders because as a male, I don't go to a store to buy a cider, but if I'm at a farm and I have a choice between cider or nothing, then I'm going to have a cider that day. So it just makes it where you don't have to have everything for everybody. Very simple inventories. We ran ours with 3 flavors of cider, and then we had a flight of 3 ciders to choose from. And then you could have that for 16.95 or the single cider for 11.95. That small 10 by 10 space with one person operating generated over $100,000 in a 6-week season in our farm that had 55,000 people. So about 15% of the revenue. So I'm here to say that I'm a fan of alcohol. Keep it very simple. Create a nice little beer garden or hard cider garden space designated for that space. Put it next to your one that's your corn crib. Your corn crib is wherever the kids are climbing in the corn, and that's where the youngins are. 3 to 6, right? Or 3 to 7 are in that corn crib. And as an adult, you go there and go, oh my gosh, I love watching my child in the corn crib. It's so cute. Look at that. And about 15 minutes in, you're like, okay, it's really great watching them. Is there something for me to do? And you turn around, you go, oh, look, there's a bar and it has a nice cider for me. Let me go grab one of those and come back. So the number one selling place that we found for alcohol is the corn crib. So keep that in mind about as you're kind of laying out your locations. Um, and this is just the farm that we worked with down in Florida here, just seeing kind of the development of, they created a 2-story bar. They took an area of trees over there and created a whole tree house experience. Again, just things that as you're thinking of laying your entities out, things you can't experience in regular locations. Where am I going to find a tree house like that? As a child, you will remember coming over to that place and go, oh my gosh, look how big this is. Mom and dad built a treehouse. It's like an 8 by 8 space and you can barely sit in it and you're climbing up a tree and you go, all right, that's great. Good. Now what do I do? We're bored in 6 weeks. So here they will have a whole day of just being able to be in there, along with jumping pillows and slides and other experiences. And then you can see in the lower corner there, that's our fresh grill operation that we're able to do. And this farm actually had over a $20 per cap in food and beverage by kind of highlighting burgers of not just selling a hamburger, but it would be with a special aioli sauce, fresh grill to order, brioche bun, very high quality, and they were getting $21 for that. Now again, we're in St. Pete, right? We're in an area that is acceptable to pricings, where you're taking a burger that's over $20. So in a lot of our sites, we won't be doing that. But again, you have the ability to get up to over a $20 per cap with food and beverage. So, and then this is part of the 3 to 4 hour stays. So candy cannons, pig races, apple cannons, fire pits, survival games, just things that don't require staff, as well. So trike tracks. I mean, trike tracks is in the top 5. Candy cannon is in the top 5. Many people purchase a nice old fire truck. They wheel it up and people will wait. That we just see this all the time. They have candy cannon at 2 o'clock and candy cannon at 5 o'clock, right? So the morning people come in and they don't leave until 2 o'clock till that candy cannon shoots off. $70 worth of candy, right? $50 worth of candy. So all that candy at 10 cents a guest gives you the time that they stay longer to purchase other things like kettle corn and items like that. So it's a great tool. And where else in the world do you see a candy cannon? I've never seen a candy cannon until I got to a farm. And I'm like, oh my gosh, that's the greatest idea ever. And then watching everybody stay. I just listened to mom and dad. Like, no, we can't go yet. We've got to see the candy cannon. Right. So just keeping those um, things that we're doing, just kind of keeping many of experiences that we can do that you can't do anywhere else. And then knowing that this is just a little bit of what we've seen. Agritourism has the most potential of growth than any other market. Again, you're seeing, more farms come in, and there's so much room for this because part of it is just exposure. People don't even know that these farms existed. You've had people come into your farm and go, I live right down the street and I didn't even know you were here. So not being afraid of that, of other farms coming in is actually going to help you. That's why three gas stations on a corner works, right? They're all successful because everybody comes to get gas at that corner. So we know of farms in just out of Seattle, Washington. They have three farms on the same block, one corner, one corner, one corner, and there's three farms on those that are attached at one stoplight. And so everybody goes to all three farms. That's what happens. They all go to all three of them. So, I know we get sometimes scared about competition and coming in, but to some degree, the number of people that you need and compared to the population that's around you is pretty minuscule, to the potential that you can do with this, knowing that, when you get up to the 50,000 person mark, you're going to be just fine. So, and again, back to what we were saying, we're not going to be, when we get to the food and beverage side of this, all this sounds great and grandiose and awesome. It's like, but what happens when we start to get up to the 1,000 people model of feeding people? So the hard part with that is you go look at a model of McDonald's, and all of you have been in a McDonald's drive-through. And if you've been in a McDonald's drive-through recently, you go into the drive-through and then they go make you park in number 3 or number 4 to wait for the food because they can't even get it out fast enough. But wouldn't it be great to get through the drive-through in 2 minutes? That would be ideal, right? That we could get through in 2 minutes. That would mean 30 cars an hour. That would mean we're feeding 60 to 80 people. That does not work for you when you have 1,000 people there. So a McDonald's model doesn't work. So what model does work? And that's the key to this, of understanding what you want to serve, how you want to serve it, and the location to do that. And then food and beverage will be your number 2 revenue, and the ability that you can, exceed $1 million in gross revenue. And the other thing that's so great about farm is that we serve items that are unique to our industry that, thank goodness, have great cost of goods. When you open a donut operation and you're doing fresh made donuts, um, when you're doing the fresh made donuts, your food cost is 8% on that item. A regular restaurant on the street is very happy to run a 30% cost of goods. They're satisfied with that. That's a great number, 30%. We can run our food costs at less than 15% because of the items that we serve with kettle corn, donuts. Um, just going through I'll show you the list in just a minute, and I'll show you which ones to serve and which not to serve. But we have the ability with this, knowing that food and beverage will be a big key part to your success. So in taking kind of a farm here that we had a chance to work with a few years ago, we're on the second floor of the main barn building, and we're looking out and seeing and what different ideas we have. And I have that red building there in the right hand corner, or top right hand corner. I go, what's that for? And you can see, if you kind of looking through the doors, it's empty, right? There's nothing in it. And they said, yeah, that's where we have our school groups, and they come and hang out, and that's where they eat their lunches. And I'm like, that's in the middle of your farm. That's in a really good location for food potentially. Let's take a look at this. And so we kind of studied it, and this is what was inside. And again, just sitting in the middle of the farm. And then we come around to the backside, I was saying, do you guys do food out there? They say, oh yeah, we do pizza. Well, if you kind of look at that picture, what we get to learn from is, would you know we're doing pizza there? Because there's no signage, right? There's nothing on that building that says pizza until we get very, very, very close, and we finally can see that there's pizza there in that right-hand corner. So you need a big sign on the roof of what you're doing at these locations. You know where your stuff is, but your guest does not. So make sure that you start to get some good signage as you're planning this out. So as you can start to see now that we took that building and made it into what I call it a tri-concept. So it has our soft serves and sundry and snack items on that side there. It has pizza on the back side, and then a fresh grill operation on the other, and then one commissary location where all the products brought in. So we created 3 concepts and all of our prep out of one location. And then it's easy to distribute. It's easy to move staff because the grill is not always busy when the sweet shop is busy. and the pizza the same way, so we can move people around with not having to change buildings. So keeping it all in one central location. And by the way, this farm had the largest corn crib that we'd ever seen. So they took a 50 by 50 barn and made it into a corn crib. And you can see the success of that and how many people are hanging out. And the bar, by the way, is just to the right of that person in there in that blue jacket there, whereas where that's located. So again, signs on the outside so people know that you're doing grill operations and where the cakes are. And there's our fresh grill in the corner there that you can see, that just kind of everybody, you can see from a ways away where the food is. And so our concept with Fresh Grill is that we cook the proteins outside, but you come up to the window to get your bun, lettuce, and tomato, which I can teach very young people to do. Hand you a bun, lettuce, and tomato, and then send you over to the grill to get your hamburger off the grill there. So, and then they do have the whole condiment station, including the condiment cow. Some people like the condiment cow. Some people have a little trouble using it, but we're not against it. It's a good item. It's a great selling point for sure. So just to move condiments along, and then you can see the fresh grill there. Again, away from your main operation so that you have time as people are coming over. And if you have to wait a minute or two for a fresh grilled burger, that's not a bad wait, right? So it's better that you're waiting for fresh food over there instead of waiting for a window and seeing sometime when it's going to come up. So exponential growth means, food needs to be able to keep up, but long lines will not bring guests back. And that's part of what we start to see, is that if we start to not pay attention to the experience that we're creating, no one likes to wait in lines. And so how do we keep the food moving? And then quality as well. People do care about the quality of what food we're producing for them. So there are many, many brands by Cisco and US Foods and PFG and all the food entities that have pre-made products for you. They have, pre-made brisket, or they have pre-made pork. But a lot of that, when they do that, is they take the whole pork butt and cook it and then stuff it in a bag and serve it to you. So we've done taste tests of that versus doing your own fresh pulled pork. And it's just not even close, right? So if you take pork specifically as an entity, you can cook it today and you can serve it 4 weeks later, because when you cook meat, it holds very, very well. So we're cooking in September for our pork in October, right? We don't have to cook it exactly to order during those 6 or 8 crazy weekends in October that we have to do that. So pork is a great product because we can cook it in advance, yet it's still very, very fresh as we put the barbecue sauce into it, hold it in cryovac bags, and then just bring it out each day for how much we're going to serve. So just as an example of one of the products. We're at many of the farms that we work with are in this location where they have, okay, well, we couldn't handle the food, so we brought in food trucks, which is great. But as you're finding out, they can't handle the food either. They can't keep up. They get long lines as well, and then you get blamed for it because it's your location. So they're a great fix for a short-term solution while you figure out what you're going to do. But the quicker you can move them on, the quicker you're going to make all the money instead of them making all the money. And then, just like, how do we lay out kitchens? Like, where do we start with that? But just needing an efficient space is really critical, because you can look at this and it says 111 kitchen, and there's a layout in there. But I always say menu drives design. So if we look at this, it looks like we've got an ice machine and a grill cooking area, but where's my freezer for the fryer is the first question. You have to put yourself into the space and see if it works for you most of the time, so that you can feel it before it gets actually designed. Or you get the overkill where there's too many pieces in here. So getting the right advice on how to get a kitchen laid out is really, really important. And we'll take you through some of the steps with that. So again, multi-concept from one location. Here's a grill on one side, sweet shop on the other. Two different facades, right? Yet one building. So the idea of this is that as you grow, this grill operation may outgrow itself. If you only, this is a farm that had 4,000 people, and 3 years later had 7,000 people. So we expanded the sweet shop and made the grill larger, and then we just built another sweet shop. So it was very, very easy to transition into that. We had all the equipment. All we had to do is build a quick little building for the sweet shop, and now our grill capacity could be able to handle our growth. So that's another reason why we like doing multi-concept out of one building. Um, just remember though, we have to have not only septic, but freezer space and dry storage and dish area. We tried doing all of our dishes out of the triple sink. It did not work very well. So getting to that point where, you have a single hood dishwasher and you're washing there that you can lease, by the way. You don't have to pay for these machines. You can lease them. Um, but it's just, planning for being able to wash, because when you have oil and grease and stuff, you want to be able to have more than just a triple sink to wash, and it's very hard for the staff to find someone to do that. So we were at a project, and this is the month of February, but we didn't get to do the footings that you see, the concrete footings, until April because it rained so much at this location. We kept filling up all of our ditches and we couldn't get the footings in. But what you could see is digging out, pumping out the water from the just to get the footings in that we were doing. But as the building kind of came together, again, back to the dual concept with a grill on the side, and then this being a whole commissary building to support it. And then, as you could see, we're in the back there, so all the product can come in, and no one's doesn't interfere with the farm, and deliveries can come in this location. So, um, and then being able to take a freezer and a fridge and attach it like this, so it came in fully assembled. You didn't have to construct it. It's craned into the location. And then let's say in the future you want to move it, you can move it. So it's not permanent. Maybe sometime you want to move this walk-in freezer to another location. With a standard walk-in freezer, you could not do that. But with this brand, you can. And there's only two manufacturers that do walk-ins this way. But once you drop it and set it in place, and 3 hours later, it's operating. So you don't have to construct it. You don't have to worry about refrigeration. You don't have to worry about, assembly and install. It's all done, craned in, set in place, ready to go. So one of the things when we were doing the food trucks there, and this was at the location I just showed you, the trucks gave them about 12,000 in a season, but we were able to do up to 20 to 40,000 or more per day in food and beverage. So this location, as you can see, we paid for this commissary in less than 2 seasons. There's not very many buildings that we can build in this planet that we can ROI so quickly. We had someone ROI a pizza restaurant in 6 weeks. They didn't even finish their season and they already paid for their pizza restaurant that they built. So food will pay for itself really quickly. It's really nice. Kind of seeing, like I said, the technology. So here's the walk-ins that we have. One of the things that's difficult about farm is that we have to follow the same food and beverage rules as a standard freestanding 52-week operating restaurant. So hood systems become an issue because hoods are expensive, right? But there's ways to do hoods either on the left, self-contained hoods, or on the right, hoods that you can purchase that you install. And as long as you've got access to up or out, the installation, you're a farm. This is things that you do really well, is these type of installs. You just need the ability to get a hood that's less than a captive air hood, where we went to one farm and they had a captive air hood for their donuts and it was $60,000. Well, you can grab one of these hoods for 15 to 20 grand. And it does the only thing the health department is looking for is two things. They'll walk in and see the hood, and they want to see the ansel hanging down. They don't ask you to test it. They don't ask you to turn it on. They want to make sure the fan is running, right? And that's it. So as long as you got a hood, you're good to go. So we don't need to spend 50, 60,000 on that hood. We have the contacts to get these hoods for a lot less. Pizzas that can be made so quickly, 10 in 2 minutes, 10 7-inch pizzas in 2 minutes in this pizza oven. So keeping up with the technology, but knowing that if I send you online and go to purchase that, that's what they run, and we're able to get them for around 16.9, and we've moved about 80 of them for farms now. I'm not here to sell equipment. I'm here to get things that create solutions. And what I did in the past is I would send you to web restaurant and go purchase this online. And then I went to Turbo Chef directly and said, what would you sell them to me for? So I can get it for 16.9, and Josh will come in and show you how to set it up. And if you have a problem with it, then we'll get it fixed for you. We have the contacts with Turbo Chef. So, we're giving you not just, hey, here's the idea, go buy a pizza oven, but here's the idea, buy it, and you've got a solution about how to take care of it and what to do if it breaks, and where we can get it for the best price. Um, so kind of seeing here's kind of the 15 little tidbits as we get to the last 15 minutes here of kind of ideas when you get into the specifics of food and beverage of where to start and where not to start. I know that in the world of farm, we think, oh, we want to do fresh baked goods and serve them to our guests. And yes, we do want to do that, but there's a lot of challenges with, you can see the products that are there that every single one of those pieces had love built into them, right? That they mix the mix and they bake it and they serve it and then hopefully the customers buy it. But if it's 2 days old, we have to throw it away. And so it's bakery is a very hard place to start. It is not easy to find bakers that understand all the things to do in the pastry world. So we always say, don't start with this. Or if you have it, keep it as a small component to start. I mean, you don't have to make pies. You can go buy pre-made pies and then brand them with your brand, and that works just fine. So you can do that. And we see a lot of farms that do that where they purchase the pies for $5 or $6 and turn around and sell them for $14 to $18 each and call them their own pies. There's nothing wrong with doing that. That's the way that I would break into bakery because it doesn't take much for somebody to cook a frozen pie. I don't need a baker for that. I just need someone who can set a timer. So, um, and then just kind of looking at, we want to sell combo meals, not snacks. Um, we'll show you on the menus here in a little bit about what we mean and how we kind of lay that out. You don't want to sell products that people can recognize. If you sell Kirkland water, they know you got it from Costco, so you want to sell brands that are a little bit offbeat because people know the prices of these products, right? I know what a can of Coke costs. I know how much you bought that water for. I know how much Budweiser costs, but I don't know what Crystal Geyser is. And I'm not sure what you should charge for a fountain drink. I remember I got one at McDonald's the other day, and oh, what a cool IPA. And when the minute you put IPA, that means I get to serve it for more expensive, right? Because I don't have to compare to the Budweiser can. I can get much better margins on these products. So a lot of times we kind of get started and we stumble into, okay, well, let's just get bottles and chips and candy. And when we're buying these for these type of prices and we want to run a 20% cost of goods, then we're going to have to mark them up to those prices to 675 and 375 and $5 for selling candy. But we can do the same products in a different way. We can do fountain beverages instead at 2 cents an ounce. We can do French fries instead of potato chips, and do funnel cakes or just other kettle corn and those type of items, donuts, right? All those products that I just listed here are all under 20% cost of goods. So that's how we maintain the margins by serving better quality products that it costs us 50 cents to make and look at what we can sell them for, right? The margins that we have on these. So now we have to get into how do we facilitate that and how do we lay out the kitchens to do it. But getting to the right products, menu drives design, right? Gets you on board and getting to see how we're going to serve this. This is a page you should take a picture of if you can, of the things that work and the menu items that don't work. So servicing the items on the left are the ones that work very well, and the ones on the right you want to avoid as much as you can. As you're getting started, you might have to have a few food trucks, but as we get going, again, letting the food trucks know that thank you for providing a great service for us. But remember, you're doing all the work, bringing out thousands of people for them to serve. So, make sure you get at least a 10% margin, and we usually recommend getting 20% from those people coming out for that. So kind of following the food criteria when you're creating a menu item, it's got to taste good, it's got to be fast, it's got to be profitable. If it doesn't meet one of those criterias, it comes off the menu. So if we were trying to do chicken wings from fresh and they take 12 minutes, that's just too long. It's not fast. They taste good and they're profitable, but it's not fast enough. So just as an example, one thing of that criteria, and we don't put it on the menu. We really walk into many facilities where you just take the existing menu that you have and just cut it in half. Take the bottom 10 things that aren't serving and get rid of them. Don't even put them on the menu. And then focus on the 10 items that you do very well and make them better. Make them better quality. We always say that you always hear me say bun, lettuce, and tomato, right? Why do I add a lettuce and tomato to every single burger? Many people don't necessarily like lettuce and tomato because I just put green and red on a plate that otherwise would come out as a brown bun and a paper plate, and I'm charging you, $13.95 for a combo with a side of fries. So I add that color of that red and green so that the presentation for that fresh grill is a better presentation than just handing you a bun. So this is the example of menus that we had set up at our grill operation. You notice that we don't have a la carte items. Like I don't offer just a cheeseburger. All I do is offer a cheeseburger combo. You want just a cheeseburger? We charge $8.95. The combo, the fries are $3. The drink is $3. So for $2, you're getting a combo. And many people look at that and go, well, that's not a really good deal for a hamburger. And I go, I know. Yeah. And so I should get a combo. Yes, you should. You should get a combo. You'll get a much better margin that way, or a much better value out of that. So we do that intentionally because I want to get $10 to $13 a guest, right, in purchasing here, not just getting, an individual kettle corn or just a bottle drink. So you can see, and then what we do with the kids menu is it comes with an apple juice and an applesauce. It does not come with fries and a soda. You want fries and a soda? That's an upgrade. Okay. Also keeps parents from buying kid meals because they're not going to eat a little box of juice and a little applesauce with their tenders. They want fries and a drink. So that's how we kind of keep the parents honest without them getting all the kids menus. This is the latest menu that was produced recently for one of the operations that we do. And you can see that the prices are very, very small. The idea is you come in and get the number one to the number three. You're not even focused on the price, and frankly, neither are we. So that's why that price is so small that it's difficult to read because people don't care. You're at a farm and you're not sitting there price quoting to see where you're going to get the best deal. You just say, God, all those things look good. Give me one of each. And you don't really care what you pay for it. So keeping in mind that the visual sells the product, right? Not the price. And so in this instance, we keep the prices down even more. Just serving good food. And that pizza oven that I showed you from Turbo Chef, that's the pizza in the top left corner. That's what's produced out of that oven. Those little 7-inch pizzas um, come out in 2 minutes, and we can do 10 of them at a time. Instagram worthy photos, pictures that really sell the farm. This really helps with your marketing and keeping everybody active about what you're doing and how you do it. You can see again, we went to pretty high levels of how we did caramel apples and how we did some of the drinks, but we were allowed to get $7.95 and $8.95 for those swirly drinks instead of say just an apple cider slushy that we could get $6 for. So just kind of upgrading and getting a little more value. This is really critical. Going cashless speeds up lines, eliminates theft. Many of the farms that we see that move to cashless have some amazing years, the year they do, unfortunately. So just pay attention that yes, when you're charging a $20 entry, it's very difficult to know whether you're always getting all the $20 bills that come in. But when you go cashless, you know all the money comes in. And not to worry about the credit card because the average spend is 50 or 100% more than an average spend on cash. We always have one drawer at the end that we allow cash for, so that and then we do gift cards for the food and beverage tied to the POS system if they want to do cash for that. If they choose to not have credit card for their food, then we just give them a gift card at the gate. And if they only spend $69, they can come to the gate at the end of the day and get their $31 back. So that's how we handle food with cashless. And then Saturday. Saturday is a very important day to really consider that I know that as a farm, we get very tired and we work very hard. But when we only are open 10 to 6 on a Saturday, you're only going to get one rush. And what's going to make that difficult is not everybody comes at 10. They come rolling in at around 11:30 or 12. And then you get another group of people that come in at 2:30 or 3 to 2:30, no later than 3 because they want to get their value leaving at 6. Therefore, you have everybody there basically from 1 to 4 o'clock. And that creates very long lines and very difficult to manage because when we say we have a 7,000 person day on a Saturday, we don't have 7,000 people in the park at any one time. We only have 3,500 people that we're actually dealing with because we get 2 waves by staying open later. So I realize that we all get very tired and it's a long day to be open from 10 to 9, but those 4 Saturdays in October or 3 Saturdays in October will present 20 to 25% of your revenue for the entire season. So it's important to spread them out and have your hours a little bit longer on Saturday. And then kind of be, what is your signature item that you want to be known for? Lasting memories, family experiences, and the food can play a part in that as well. So, and the last thing we say here is, don't be afraid to ask for help. This Florida agriculture organization that you're a part of is a phenomenal place to network, spend time, meet other farms, learn about their challenges, learn about what mistakes they made, what they would do differently. It's just a great, great organization to be a part of. And please come out to this conference and share your woes, and everyone can be a part of that as we work together as a group to make Florida such a great experiential place. And lastly, as I say to all the farmers, thank you so much for everything that you do. And I know you're going to take on this new entity, as this is truly a new industry of creating these experiences for families that they could never get anywhere else if it wasn't for you. So that's my spiel. Does anyone have any questions? Or anything I missed that you have a question about?
It was very thorough. Some great ideas, Mike.
I
Thank you.
love how you keep refining everything, Mike. It's just really incredible. With each group you work with, whether it's a farm, I know you have many other hospitality clients that you're able to kind of combine all that experience from other industries and bring it to us and help our farmers.
Yeah, and it's such a unique time for you because it's new to Florida and it's not traditional because your weather is so different down there, right? So it's seeing how Florida's coming out of this, and there's some really great success stories down in your area, as you know. And I think with what you bring to the table of getting all these farms together, I think is so beneficial that everyone will be successful, and that's what brings more families out. If every farm's doing great, everyone's going to be happy. So.
I have a feeling that many of our participants today have very specific questions, but I'm going to ask a very general question. And might go back to some of your early recommendations about adding food and beverage experiences and products to your operation. Like, what is your general advice for a farm that is just like one thing that they could do differently? I mean, I heard so many positive things today on how to shake it up or how to maximize their profits. But if they could just focus on one thing that they could do different, what would it be?
I think the thing that I see that brings people to a farm initially from a food product standpoint is wrapped around, as funny as this is going to sound, is wrapped around donuts. Um, we have one farm that we know of that does $460,000 in donuts in Iowa, right? It's not like they're in the middle of this huge, vast, mass amount of people in Iowa. So what I've learned from that is that and watching, we worked with DeBuck's Farms, and then when we started with them, they had a massive donut operation because that's what kind of brought people out. Donuts, fresh donuts tie into farm. I don't know why. It's just kind of a thing. But and the location of that building is important. It needs to be near the front because that's where people are going to get it for breakfast time, and they're going to grab it at the end of the day as well, right? So that's really my thing is that I when we ask the question, where do I start? That's probably the first product I'd start with. But to understand, it's a little temperamental. It's important to have a good setup for that because as our team was doing, getting up at 4 in the morning on Saturday to make donuts, the 1,200 donuts that had to be made each day on the weekends. There's a flow to that. And if you don't have the flow right, it's not easy to do donuts. So, or what machine you should have, or what to start with, so get some good advice on people doing donuts. But I think that's a really great food item first to start because it takes a little bit more work than actually many of the other items. But once you understand that flow, I think it makes a big difference for the potential of farms. So that's the first item that I would do.
I know we have members who do donuts. I can think of blueberry donuts and strawberry donuts off the top of my head that people make.
Yes. I can name some farms that have item-worthy products to travel to just eat them.
Yep.
Yes.
Hmm.
And some
And
of them
kettle,
include like ices and smoothies and kettle corn, that's more specific to Florida. But I agree with you about the donuts.
yeah, it's just that that little unique product that we have. And you kind of mentioned it there. Kettle corn's kind of number two. That's an easy one that you can bag in advance, weeks in advance, actually. People think it has to be a fresh product. It actually tastes just as good the next day as well as the next week, as long as it's airtight sealed. So it's
Mhm.
nothing that you have to make to order. Donuts the same way. Actually, make if you create an environment where you're serving hot donuts, you're going to have a very difficult time keeping up with that as you get busier. So just serve donuts, don't serve hot donuts and have that expectation. They're just fine after a half hour or an hour or even the next day. But if you show somebody what a fresh donut tastes like, of course that's going to be better. You just don't give them that option because otherwise you're going to run into what other farms have run into is you're taking that away from them. But it's because we can't keep up realistically. If there's 100 people in line and they all want donuts, you have to have them made in advance.
Have you ever helped out with like private labeling or a product where people want to not only eat it there, but take it away with them, as a gift or just to eat more of the next day?
We've definitely seen it with alcohol, where people will take their apples or their grapes or their items that they integrate into their, strawberries that's integrated into the product and then labeling their own. Um, Cider farms, significant that we're seeing more and more of those giving private label. We've seen it some in products, jams, etc., but not as much. But I love integrating into the food. So if you're a blueberry farm, having some blueberry options as part of your menu, I think that's how I like it ties in is what are you famous for on your farm? Bob's Corn in Seattle is all about his corn. So he's got a corn roaster and he has the best corn. And he does have the best corn
Right.
that I've had. So theme it around what you do as a farm.
Have you seen farms offer recipe cards in conjunction with their products?
Not too often specifically, but I love the idea. I think
Okay.
anything that people can leave with a memory of your space and whether it's providing, a recipe or a great picture site for the family. I think so, anything like that is only going to make things better. So I'm for that. I like that idea.
Okay. Well, my last question, I put it in the chat because I was hoping to be some more interaction here, but what was some of your favorite food memories that have really helped to impact client operations and their bottom line?
Let's
Speaking of
see.
food memories,
I'm
food
trying to,
memories.
as a child, my food memories.
Yes, or something that you've seen on a client's farm.
Well, I mean, from a childhood memory, I have a very distinct memory of the popcorn at Disney. And
Wow.
what's funny about that is that the cruise ship that I was just on last month with Disney has the same popcorn. So
Hmm.
they have that recipe that they still use on every Disney property. That's that same popcorn that you're getting on Main Street as you're coming into Disney. So that's my childhood one. But it ties into, the what does a farm tie into so easily is, kettle corn is just such a natural one, and find making sure you have a good recipe for that. So, but yeah, that's the one that stands out for me. We didn't have agritourism farms when I was growing up. I wish they did because I'd be at every single one of them. I think they're just awesome, and so would my kids.
I
we would go
agree.
all the time.
I
Um,
completely agree. I'm gonna have to go try that Disney popcorn again. I grew up in the shadow of Disney as well, but on the East Coast, so in
Gotcha.
Florida. Hmm.
It's the same in Florida. It's the same recipe.
I believe it.
Any
Sarah?
other?
Okay,
Yeah.
well, Mike, we can't thank you enough for being here today and taking the time. I learned a lot and gave a lot of people good ideas on how to expand their imprint with food. Just reminding everyone that our next webinar is June 23rd and it's with HipCamp. So we're moving from food to lodging. Hope you could join us then, and of course at our conference, July 19th through 21st in Punta Gorda. So again, thank you, Mike and Lena, and we'll see you soon, Mike.
All right. Thanks so much. Thanks,
Thank you,
everybody.
Thank
Mike.
you.
All
Have
right.
a great evening, everyone. Bye-bye.
Thanks.